real quick, I'm just going to show you one way. So we have the hexadecimal color DBB437. So I'm just going to say hexadecimal to RGB. That's not what I should have clicked on. There we go. So I'm just going to copy this. All right, now we have that RGBA value. And the fourth value is the opacity, so it goes on a scale from 0 to 1. So we want it completely opaque, I guess is the right word, 100%. So we save that, and you'll see, nothing's changed here, right? One thing I like to do is just for this is like a stylistic component, is so when we have that circle thing, circle link, when you hover over it, just to give it like a, an interactive effect component to it, is you can just change the RGBA value. What am I doing? And then you can just have it so that it shows up like 0.8% opaque, and then it just gives it a little bit of interactivity there. So it's, see how it fades out a little bit? And you can do the opposite too, so that way some people like to do the opposite, 1, and then when you hover over it, or 0.8, and then when you hover over it, it's 1. So you give a little interactivity to your buttons as well. So it's, so
Just show me the code you just added.
So I gave, it naturally has like a 0.8, like it's 80% opaque, so 20% transparent, so it's a little faded out. And then when you hover over it, it goes completely opaque, so it just gives it a little interactive component to it.
Do you normally, you use a mix of hex and RGBA?
I do, mainly when I switch to RGBA, it's well, other than if I'm trying to, give a background colors are really effective with RGBA, because you can give it a, like a semi-transparent background. So let me think of an example here. I think this site has it, of course. See how there's it's slightly, see how it's see-through? How it has a color. That's you can do that with an RGBA value. So the transparency.
So you can do it with the other way.
You can't do that's called alpha channel transparency, which is what the A stands for, RGBA.
So you,
Alpha, and in graphic design, alpha means fade in, fade out, transparency, and you can't do alpha channel with hexadecimal. You can only do it with RGBA. There's RGB and there's RGBA. So anytime you need transparency, use RGBA. Any other time, use hex.
you
Kind of rule I know. Is that the rule you know?
yeah, I mean that's how I go. And one thing is you have an opacity attribute for any element. You can give it an opacity, which is the same thing, like in terms of it's on a 0 to 1 scale. However, if you do, I like to do RGBAs for background color, because if you did background color a hexadecimal and then did opacity for that element, then if you have any text in there or you have any image in there, it'll also be that opacity. Does that make sense? So if you just do it simply with RGBA on the background color, then all the text and everything else stays 100% viewable.
Can you apply can you apply to JPEGs?
How do you do transparency? How do you
In terms of like, what do you mean in terms of trying to get it?
See, if I were to cut the opacity down on a JPEG.
You could just do opacity attribute on that element, right? But if I get what your use case is, yeah, you can cut the opacity down on that image.
Can you show us that?
Sure.
Throw an image up and do an inline style opacity.
Yeah.
This is just making an image.
You could do it for hovering over. That's super clear. Trying to find which one's a JPEG here. I'm showing him how to do opacity on an image. Huh? Right. Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. Sorry, people online. I'm doing opacity for the images. So, there, boom. Huge. And see how it's faded out a little bit? And so just for, let's say, position fixed and z-index. Actually. See, if we have it completely viewable, then it's since I did position fixed in that high Z index, it's in front of that text. But I'm just doing this to show you that if you put the opacity at like 0.5, now you can see the text through it. So you can do it with images as well.
That's awesome.
Does that make sense?
That's awesome.
Yeah, so the z-index is kind of what we were talking about, just to give you a quick refresher. Yesterday, when we were doing when we were doing the fixed and absolute positioning, when you do that, it takes it out of the flow of the document. So instead of the document, picture the document being like a piece of paper, right? And then when you do the fixed positioning or the absolute positioning, you take it out of that flow of the document. So you take it out of that piece of paper, and you then it's like another piece of paper. Like it's like you cut out whatever that was and put it on top, right? So the z-index determines in what order. Like if you have a high one, then you're high on the stack. Does that make sense?
It's like the math graph chart. You got your X, you got your Y.
Yeah, and you have a Z. Exactly. Z is all about depth.
So that text bar is clickable. So when you lower the opacity, can you still interact with that text bar, click on it?
Yep.
Is the function still?
Yep.
Yeah, he's getting the finger. Peter's giving him the finger.
I'm getting the point, or the pointer, as we like to call it.
Backward, like a virus that infects everybody's computer.
Gives
Changes the finger from that one. It'd be the world flip-off.
Zoe says it's been done before. All right, let's take a quick break, and then I'm going to get one of you.
Go back to your code.
I'm probably going to get you. You're going to come up here.